A startup nobody was talking about last month just made every major AI model look architecturally obsolete. And the company that just bought its biggest rival's plumbing? That's story 7. Stick around. This is the AI feed. Story 1, SubQ's subquadratic LLM. Here's a number, 12 million tokens. That's the context window on a new commercial AI model that shipped this week. For reference, GPT-4 launched with 8,000. Most frontier models today top out around 200,000. 12 million means you can feed an entire library into a single prompt and get an answer back. But the context window isn't even the real story. The real story is how SubQ built it. Every major AI model you've ever used, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all of them, runs on a transformer architecture. It's the same basic design since 2017. And it has a fundamental problem: attention scales quadratically. Double your context, and the compute cost doesn't double. It quadruples. That's why long context models are so expensive to run. SubQ built around that problem entirely. Their architecture is subquadratic, meaning compute costs grow much more slowly as context expands. That's not an upgrade. That's a different category of machine. Now, one commercial release doesn't end the transformer era overnight. But it does prove the architecture works outside a research paper. That's the step that matters. The question now is whether the big labs have been quietly working on the same thing. Because if they haven't, they should be nervous. Story 2 involves NVIDIA, quantum computing, and the words open source. Yes, all three at once. Story 2, NVIDIA's Ising models. Quantum computing has had a marketing problem for years. The promise is enormous. The reality has been error rates so high that the machines are barely usable. You spend more compute correcting mistakes than doing actual work. NVIDIA just released something called Ising. It's the first family of open-source AI models built specifically to solve quantum's core engineering problems: error correction and processor calibration. Early results are striking. 2.5 times faster error correction. 3 times more accurate. Harvard's running them. National labs are running them. Here's why this matters beyond the specs. NVIDIA isn't a quantum company. They're a classical compute company. But they've apparently decided that quantum gets practical sooner if AI helps it get there. And by releasing Ising as open source, they've just accelerated that timeline for everyone, including their future competitors. The intersection of two transformative technologies, with real institutional validation, is not something you see every week. File this one under quiet moves with long tails. Now, from quantum physics to something considerably more unsettling. Story 3, Anduril and Meta's military smart glasses. Meta makes Ray-Ban's smart glasses. Anduril makes autonomous weapons systems. This week, MIT Technology Review reported they're prototyping military AR headsets together. The pitch: a soldier looks at a target, uses eye tracking and voice commands, and calls in a drone strike. Consumer hardware. Lethal interface. Same form factor. The project is led by a former Army Special Operations veteran, which tells you this isn't a vague R&D skunkworks. It's a product with a customer. That customer is the US military. Here's the question nobody has a clean answer to yet. Where exactly is the line between a consumer device and a battlefield kill system? Because apparently it's wherever Meta and Anduril decide to draw it. The same glasses you'd use to take a photo at a concert could, in a different firmware build, authorize lethal force. That's not a hypothetical. That's the product roadmap. This is the kind of story that seems niche until it isn't. Autonomous weapons with consumer-grade UX is a policy conversation that's moving much slower than the engineering. We need to talk about electricity. $67 billion worth of it. Story 4, NextEra's $67 billion Dominion acquisition. Real quick, a pattern interrupt: most AI discourse is about models. But the physical world has opinions about AI too, and right now its opinion is that we don't have enough power plants. NextEra Energy just announced a $67 billion acquisition of Dominion Energy. Largest utility merger in U.S. history. The primary driver isn't population growth or electric vehicles. It's AI data centers. The U.S. is facing a projected 45 gigawatt shortfall for data centers by 2028. Goldman Sachs estimates 760,000 new power and grid workers will be needed by 2030. That's not a software problem. That's a concrete and copper problem that takes years to solve. AI's energy appetite is now reshaping physical national infrastructure at a scale that most people haven't registered. The next time someone says AI is overhyped, point at a $67 billion power grid acquisition and ask them to explain it. Story 5. Musk loses his OpenAI lawsuit. A unanimous jury sided with OpenAI this week. Elon Musk's lawsuit, the one that put OpenAI's founding mission, Sam Altman's integrity, and the governance of the world's most influential AI company on trial, was thrown out. Not on the merits. On the statute of limitations. Musk waited too long to file. He says he'll appeal. The irony here is thick. The most public AI legal battle in history ended not with a verdict on whether OpenAI betrayed its non-profit mission, but with a procedural clock running out. The underlying questions, about whether a company can pivot from open-source non-profit to closed commercial giant and call it consistent, those questions didn't get answered. They just got deferred. Musk's appeal will probably keep this story alive. But for now, OpenAI walks away clean, and the governance debate moves back to the policy arena where it'll be argued much more quietly. Story 6. YouTube's deepfake detection for everyone. YouTube is rolling out AI likeness detection to every adult user on the platform. Submit a face scan, and YouTube's AI actively hunts for deepfake videos of you. If it finds one, you get an alert. This is the largest proactive deepfake protection deployment on any consumer platform, ever. And it's arriving exactly when it needs to. Non-consensual AI-generated imagery has gone from an edge case to a mainstream crisis in about 18 months. YouTube scanning proactively, rather than waiting for reports, is a meaningful shift. The obvious caveat: it only works if the platform's detection is accurate. False negatives miss real harm. False positives flag legitimate content. Scale makes both problems worse. But as first steps go, this is a real one. Story 7. Anthropic buys the tool. OpenAI and Google depend on. Last story. And this one's worth paying attention to even though it sounds boring. Anthropic acquired a startup called Stainless. Stainless automates the creation of software development kits, the libraries developers use to plug into AI APIs. Unglamorous infrastructure work. Here's the thing. Stainless was already being used by OpenAI, Google, and Cloudflare. Anthropic just bought the plumbing that its biggest rivals depend on. That's a quiet acquisition of a strategic choke point in the developer tools layer. It doesn't make headlines like a new model release. But it gives Anthropic leverage over a piece of the stack that every AI company needs. Watch how OpenAI and Google respond. Whether they rebuild in-house, find alternatives, or just keep using Stainless and hope Anthropic plays nice, each choice tells you something about how these companies think about competitive risk. The boring infrastructure moves are often the ones that matter most. That one's worth remembering. A new architecture threatens the Transformers' decade-long monopoly. NVIDIA is using AI to make quantum computing work. Meta's glasses may soon be pointing at targets. And a $67 billion power merger just made AI's energy problem impossible to ignore. Big week. That's your AI feed.